Hello, lords and ladies of the internet. I'm the King of Candor, and today I'm going to be talking about the history of the Gith. With Baldur's Gate 3 recently coming out, I have had several people ask me about the Gith, since they play such a prominent role in the game. I decided to cover them here and give you the real-world origins and details about them. But first, what is a Gith? The Gith are a fantasy race found in Dungeons & Dragons, who live in the astral plane. Basically the spirit realm mixed with outer space, and just a dash of psionics and time magic thrown in. The origins of the Gith are shrouded in mystery, with many forgotten half-truths about their origins. What is known is they were an evil race that was enslaved and experimented on by the Mind Flayers. So, Mind Flayers are these tentacle-faced guys who eat brains and had an interplanetary space empire. They are also called Illithids in official lore, but I'll be calling them Mind Flayers here. So, the Mind Flayers enslaved this evil race and abused them for so long their original name was forgotten. The Mind Flayers use psionics, which is D&D for psychic stuff. Through their psionics, the Mind Flayers controlled the Gith. Eventually, some of the Gith evolved psionic powers of their own. With their newfound power, a revolution was planned. The Gith Rebellion was led by their warrior queen, named Gith. It's actually from her they get their name. They waged a massive interplanetary war against the Mind Flayers and destroyed their empire. During this war, the Gith allied themselves with red dragons, using them as mounts to launch their attacks. Eventually, the Gith started raiding for supplies and taking ownership of the empire they had just destroyed. This caused a rift in Gith society, with two groups forming, the Githyanki and the Githzerai. The Githyanki and the Githzerai eventually had a massive civil war. The Githyanki are like loyalists who keep their culture of raiding and conquests. They are also the most commonly encountered group of Gith. The Githzerai were rebels who wanted to move on to a culture about learning and aestheticism. Think monk warriors from our own history. The Githzerai lost their war and were mostly banished, hiding in small pockets across space and time. So now you know a little bit of the fictional history of the Gith. We can explore where they have come from and some neat details about them. Before we continue though, I would really appreciate it if you'd like to subscribe and share the video. I want to work on these projects more, but I just can't justify spending more time until the channel grows. Thank you. Now, on to the details. So, the Gith are taken from George R.R. Martin's book, Dying of the Light. This is his first book, and it's a sci-fi one. It mentions a race of elder beings called the Githyanki, who are nearly dead. Here, they are also noted as being powerful psychics and are enslaved to another race. This name, plus the sci-fi twist, inspired a young creator named Charles Stross to write some lore for them in his home game of D&D. Charles Stross also created several of the other famous monsters from D&D, like the Slot, and we'll cover those eventually. At the time, a fan magazine was being run called White Dwarf, and the company behind it was Games Workshop. Yes, that one. To find out more about how Games Workshop got involved with D&D, I suggest you check out my History of Orcs video, linked below. White Dwarf had a section called the Fiend Factory, where fans could submit their own monsters for others to use. The Gith were the feature in issue number 13, and they were so liked by TSR, they decided to make them official. They published a book called The Fiend Folio, which contained rules for a whole bunch of their monsters, as well as several from the Fiend Factory column compiled together. The Gith were given special treatment though, as the cover image of this book is actually a Gith. The Gith here are interesting. As I said before, the name was completely stolen from George R.R. Martin, and their psychic powers became psionics. They were also still enslaved, but by the Mind Flayers now. Taking this basis, I think they have been altered into a completely new race. Also, in the original novel, These vague descriptions are all the information we got about the Gith, so it's not plagiarism in my opinion. Also, George R.R. Martin knows about this and has said it doesn't bother him since so much of his own works are based on other people's works. Something else you won't know about the Gith is they're actually humans. The first edition of D&D specifically says the Gith were a race of evil humans the Mind Flayers enslaved. Then, after thousands of generations of breeding them and feeding on them, the Gith race was created. From here, their lore was developed into the lore I talked about in the introduction. From an out-of-game perspective, the Gith also added a very interesting word to the vocabulary of gamers: Gish. Gish means someone who is both a skilled warrior and a skilled mage. Lots of places online say this word originated from a boss monster in the 4th edition of D&D, but this is untrue. A Gish was a type of Gith listed in the Fiend Folio who had levels in both fighter and magic user. This term stuck and was eventually given a definition in the 1996 Planescape Sourcebook, a guide to the astral plane. Here, we learn Gish means skilled in the Gith language. I find this fine, but I also really like some of the mythology around this term I saw on online forum posts, saying it meant Gith-ish. Sadly though, this is not true. That is all for today. Thank you for watching this far. If you enjoyed the content, I'd appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. I'm looking forward to your candor in the comments below. Have a great day.